Yeah, come back. Welcome back to Line Podcast. My name is Aaron Alexander, and I'd like to start today by announcing the winner of the giveaway. I really appreciate you guys getting involved with that. We mentioned last week we are giving away a care package from Blue Blocks, who sponsored this podcast, and it is a really tremendous $360 value. Includes daytime blue blockers, nighttime blue blockers, and a sleep mask from those guys. Really great stuff. They are the steeziest blue blocking glass company that I have encountered, and I really dig them. I utilize blue blockers, especially in time I'm traveling. If I'm in airports, around the evening hours, if I'm going to be around any kind of obnoxious bright blue lights, I throw those puppies on a couple hours before bed, and it helps support your physiology so you don't start boosting yourself up with all sorts of stress hormones before you go to bed, because your body gets the signal that it's time to wake up when you get hit with those frequencies of light. So it's a great way to protect yourself and look good while you're doing it. You can get yourself 15% off your purchase by going to blueblocks.com/align and use the line code 15% off. BLUBLOX.com/align for a discount on those things. So thanks so much to Johnny Hazelnut. On Instagram, it's called Let Good Vibes Get a Lot Stronger. All kinds of letters in that. Here's what he said. Hello, everyone. Having healed myself from acute Crohn's disease, dis-ease, he emphasizes the separation word, and having listened to and worked with the Align Band and movements taught off the podcast and YouTube channel, I can recommend to anyone from very sick and in need to high performance athletes to align themselves with this information that is available, accessible, and easy to utilize under Aaron Alexander's warming, thorough, and thoughtful helping words. Pow! Exclamation point. Thank you so much for that, Johnny. I really appreciate it. It's amazing. Thank you to everybody else who left reviews on the iTunes. I wish I could give the prize away to everybody, but we'll do more. I like this giveaway thing. Today's tremendous guest was the fantastic Emily Schromm. Emily is an entrepreneur. She is a nutritionist. She is a CrossFit athlete. She was on MTV's Road Rules and got first place at one point. She's won it a bunch of times, I think. Really tremendous human being. One of the most authentic people that I've had the opportunity to share some space with here on this program called Align Podcast. And great conversation. During it, you'll be able to hear, I think I talked quite a bit too much. I think I was trying to impress Emily. And so you can kind of hear, I don't think I did the interview justice by doing that. So maybe we'll get to do another one at some point. Anyhow, this conversation was good. We go into all sorts of interesting wormholes, ranging from excommunicating oneself from a cult to cultivating empathy to more effective communication, something that I could work on, obviously. And really good. If y'all are in Los Angeles on September 11th, I will be presenting at the World's Summit at 11 o'clock, September 11th at 11 a.m. I don't know if there's some sacred numerology meaning there or something like that, but it's 9/11 at 11 a.m., World's Summit. Come out and visit. All right, here we go. Back to the conversation with Emily Schromm. We start off, by the way, we're talking about tarot cards here, if you're curious what the heck we're talking about. All right, here we go. Back to the show. Pow.
Align Podcast.
I was raised in like a highly religious background. And so I was always like very afraid of anything that was not Jesus.
Yeah.
So like even the word like pagan or like anything, agnostic, I was like, agnostic probably means you like burn virgins over a steak or something.
Yes. Yes.
Stay away from that.
Totally. Yeah. Which card did you get?
My card says Unag. Easy does it. Should I read it?
Yeah, go for it.
There's no need to hurry or force things to happen. Everything is occurring in perfect timing. Well, that's the story of my last several years.
And it starts with an O. All right, I'll read you the fast version.
Okay.
This is from her. Nurturing a cause or relationship is a long-term commitment and one that can't be rushed. This level of devotion comes from a place of deep loving and concern. I care what happens to my planet and to my loved ones so much that I'm willing to stick with them through thick and thin. This isn't always easy, but to me, it's the only way to ensure that matters are resolved and healed. I listen to the passionate stirrings of my heart. I reach out and take action to let my loved ones know I care about them. I take action to spur on my pet causes. Never mind what other people think. You will benefit by carrying through with your priorities. You'll feel so good about yourself if you make time for the relationships and projects that truly count in your heart. Do what's important to you, but do it with absolute devotion. Don't worry about your purpose or your goals. Make no sudden moves. Slow, steady progress is best. Ease into your new life instead of rushing into it. Do your new work as a part-time venture to begin with while slowly exiting your old career.
Wow.
Do you like it?
Yeah.
Is it relevant?
Well, minus the career part. I don't even know. I mean, I think I'm in my career. I'm pretty sure.
Full time.
Unless I transition
Well,
like
you're writing a book.
a goat farmer or something.
Yeah.
Maybe this whole aligned postural
Yeah.
movement stuff is just nonsense. I'm trying to move on.
I love it.
I am doing a book, yeah. And you're right. Yeah, I guess there is quite a large transition happening in relation to that. But yeah, it's an interesting thing, like a transition into being able to take that seed that you had cultivated and actually turn it into something that's, taking the next level up beyond that. I feel like most of us, myself for a really long time, it's like we put ourselves into the container. It's like a goldfish grows as big as the container that they're in.
Yeah.
And so it's figuring out like, how do you let go of the fear? How do you, whatever the terminology would be, to actually allow yourself to get placed into a larger container?
Yeah. And then is that container even a real thing? Like, I think with me, just had this vision. I take a bath every day. That's kind of my zen.
Good.
Well, although we're sitting in the sun right now, so this
is
might
it.
be my
We're
heat
literly
for the day.
bathing in sun.
Yeah, it's so nice.
Yeah,
isn't
your body eats it.
I love it. And I had this kind of epiphany of like, I used to do a ton of way too much fitness. So I had like a jerk in my head. I was doing a jerk, so in a split jerk stance. So I had like this 200 jerk pound weight over my head, and I was just holding it, and I was so proud of it. And then I remember seeing, after you hold something for so long and then your face starts to change because you're like, okay, this is hard. Get in the right mindset. You have to hold this. You have to hold this. And instead of weights, I don't know why I'm telling you this. I've never told anybody this. Instead of weights, it was actually these buckets of water, and it was wobbly, and I started sweating, and I got more and more exhausted, and I just didn't want to let anybody down. And I remember wobbling and wobbling and wobbling, and finally it dropped, and I just shattered to the ground, and I just started crying, and these buckets of water dumped all around me. But then the things that were around me started to grow, and I remember feeling this huge epiphany of, so many times we want to grow into something that we think we should grow into, but what if the beauty is actually by just falling still and understanding that the process, like, it was just the best visual for me, because we all hear about how the process is what people need, but like to see it in that way, in that visual that I had just out of nowhere, just sitting in a bathtub and realizing like my struggle is actually the most important part of everything that I'm doing, because we all struggle, and the more clear about the struggle we are, it's so much more glamorous, and not even glamorous, it's so much more relatable than any size of goldfish, and that was really helpful for me.
That's awesome.
Not to jump
You got to
into
write that thing down somewhere.
I have.
Do the transcript of this thing. I find it interesting, like getting into, like, so it's like, you got to just trust. But I think it's a lot easier to say trust than to actually like let go and trust. And the process of getting to that point where you feel safe enough to truly let go and like allow the world to push you wherever you need to be. I feel like there takes a lot of like, in my path, which I don't think is like the most accurate one, it took like a lot of pushing for me to maybe now I somewhat have a semblance of feeling as though I'm being pushed, but that's like very recent. Yeah. So have you had an experience like that at all?
Yeah, I think when you're talking, the first thing, I just decided, I know we know each other briefly, but I feel comfortable, so I'm just going to say the things that come to my head. Usually I try to censor it. I don't think I'm going to do that.
Perfect. That's why we take the roof off.
Yeah.
That's why we come to the top of a building with the sun.
Stay barefoot. So I think for me, one of my favorite quotes right now is, as my self-love grows, so does my intuition. And so the trust comes from not trusting that you're going to be okay. It's just knowing that your impulses are correct. And so when you believe in that, then anything that you do, every step that you take, every progress, every effort, every conversation, everything you write, everything you post, all of it becomes such an extension of who you are, and it is the path. It is no longer I'm doing this and this and this to get to that. It all just flows. And so I think that only came from me. I've done nothing except trust the gut, and almost to a way where like my intuition is exhausted. And so it's understanding like you it feels right, so you do it. But there's no way I should be where I am right now. I mean, the last 5 years have been insane. And I think luckily it's a lot of good people around me, and also just a good sense of self. But I think all of it comes down to when I start to lose trust and not really sure, et cetera, I just come back and I'm like, well, do I love who I am? Do I trust that who I am is enough? And then if those two pieces are in play, then everything else, it's effortless. It just happens.
What are some of the tangible, from your perspective and your experience, like the tangible bits of getting to that point where you do feel confident enough to let go and actually trust your intuition?
Well, I think the groundwork for me, because I didn't ever trust my intuition, because we are born into a culture that says who you are is broken and you have to fix it. We're born into a society that says, you're not small enough, you're not quick enough, you're not fast enough, you're not smart enough. I think that's just around us because they're trying to sell you something. So regardless of if it's in your peripheral vision or not, we are always told that we need something more. And that something that we need, we purchase, we will be a better XYZ. So when you quiet that, that's one thing, I think, just noticing it. And for me, it came down to truly how my body was at a systemic level, like a cellular level, like who I was inflamed and in pain and like digestive distress every single day, lots of anxiety, lots of depression bouts, lots of skin issues. I mean, the list went on. And I think we all have experienced some sort of health issue in our life that at some point you had to make the choice. I'm going to live like this forever. I'm going to do something about it. And so when I made that choice, that's when everything became clear. And I think it could be the chicken or the egg. Was it because I cleaned my diet and I helped my gut in a way that now my brain can think clearly and I'm able to make the good decisions that I can make about my body, about myself, about my self-confidence? Not to say it's not always a work in progress, but that was the first, I think, the first thing for anybody that's like, I don't know how to trust myself. You have to look at what you're consuming, whether it's the television, advertisements, the people in your life trying to sell you something to make you feel like you aren't good enough as is, or is it just as simple as you eat too much sugar or you eat foods that your body doesn't connect with, flaring up inflammation pathways that do in turn help prevent you thinking clearly on a day-to-day basis. So that was like wipe the slate clean. I'm going to start from scratch. I'm going to learn about my body, learn about real food. And then I was able to build off of that. And I think since I changed my diet, my intuition, if I listen to it, it hasn't served me wrong since that happened.
I have a feeling that dietary choices and relationship choices and work choice, like all the things, but diet specifically, is a question of self-worth. So we look at it as just like, I don't know how people look at it exactly, but I think we think of nutrition as being the thing that saves you. But I wonder if you can get to that level of actually like truly caring about yourself and thinking that you're like worth feeding yourself well, then naturally you make the choices to start putting better food into your body and things like that.
For sure. Yeah. I think with me and clients, when clients understand the whys behind it, you can always tell a client to eat this and not eat that.
Right.
But when they start to understand that they are not their cravings, that they are not a lesser human because of the sugar that they want or the soda that they tend to go for. Of course, there's some habitual patterns that need to be at least acknowledged. But for the most part, I really think that every craving and every impulse can be almost diagnosed in a way that to explain that to a client and say, you know, I understand that you freaking love chocolate, but what if we supplemented with XYZ and your chocolate cravings went away? No longer are you in the cycle of, I ate chocolate and now I feel bad about myself. Screw it. I'm going to now have pizza. You know, it's like breaking that cycle in a very simple way. And that's the self-worth. Like, you can't get out of self-loathing in your own lens. Like, you have to have somebody else sometimes pull you out of that. I don't think that it takes one person. For me, actually, the truest experience, I don't know if you've heard me talk about this, and I'm just going to not censor it, but was an ayahuasca experience.
Oh, good.
That was really the way that I saw myself through a different lens that I don't know if I could have in my day-to-day life, you know, talking about it and speaking about it. And of course, doing the work and journaling and meditating, but sometimes it does take us a third party, whether it doesn't have to be ayahuasca, but there does have to be sometimes another approach to get you out of your own head, for you to start to see what worth you do bring, because it's just a hard cycle to break.
When did you do did you do just one, or did you do like a weekend thing? Or did you
it literally was one day. And I honestly, I was like, no, I'm good. I had an option to do a second day, and it was so profound and also so intense and exhausting that I was like, I got exactly what I needed. I wasn't seeking anything. And then I showed up and it just gave me exactly what I needed. So it was, I guess about 2.5 years ago.
What was the experience like?
Well, for me, it really taught me how much of a control freak I am. I really had never, you can say like, oh, I'm chill, I'm cool, I go with the flow, but there's no way the work that I do, in some ways you have to be a psycho control freak to make sure everything's in line and you're getting the goals that you want. Like I have basically become more of a control freak in the last 10 years, and I didn't even realize it.
Yep.
And so that was the first thing.
Do you have any sense of why that would have manifested, the control freak?
Well, it manifested because in order for me to truly experience and be present, I have to let go. And that's the work of the Enneagram 7 that we briefly discussed before. The 7 always is the personality test. The Enneagram, me being a type 7, constantly looking for gratitude or like gratification in something else. What's next? So even my handwriting is mostly cursive because I'm so excited to get to the next word. Like it's excessive. So it's, you get so excited about something and you're like, okay, let's execute it. Let's move on. Like, I don't ever want to sit still, and I can't ever remember truly sitting still and being content in that, until the ayahuasca experience. 'Cause it was like, if you don't let go, you're going to have the worst 5 hours of your life. And I remember like gripping on the wall, like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And you see all it starts off so beautiful. And there's like, you feel like you're in a kaleidoscope, and I'm like, wow, this is so pretty. And then all of a sudden you're like, I don't feel my body. I don't feel my legs. I don't know where I'm at. I have to stop this. And that's when I was like, it was like, nope, you choose. You either let go and experience, or you become just miserable. And so that shifted pretty profoundly for me. Not to say it's still not a daily work to not be such a micromanager, but it's definitely been much better. And I've been a much better human because of that.
Yeah, there's a guy called Moshe Feldenkrais. You ever heard of like Feldenkrais method or any of that stuff? Moshe Feldenkrais, I think is how you say his name. But he calls like the unconscious contractions that we have throughout our body, he calls them parasitic tension. And so like I do Rolfing and different forms of like manual therapy, like bodywork stuff with people. And sometimes you'll pick somebody's arm up off the table and they'll be like, and we'll just be like holding it up in the air. And I'm like, okay, just relax. I'm like, okay. It's just like stuck. And they have no idea how to actually relax their nervous system. And so they're moving through the world all day long with all this excessive like caloric expenditure that goes into holding their body in these braced positions.
And so unaware of it.
And so it's like, I just think it's a fascinating, I think that's like what being a human is. Like that's what the human experience is like going in and finding all those different parasitic tensions that we have. I don't know. I agree.
It's so true. And the hardest part is once you start the rabbit hole and truly, self-work, I think, is the layer of life that I've entered into in the last 6 months. That's like, all right, you can crush your business. You can build businesses. You can help with XYZ. You can speak, you can do workshops, you can teach, but can you sit still and be with yourself and be completely happy with that? And if you can't answer yes to that, then you have a huge problem. So I think that was a big reason for me opening the gym, like really wanting a home base and knowing that I could have a center and not feel like I have to be all over the place. And then I had this in the bathtub again, like, people juggling. And I have 5 things that are like, I could name them, 5 things that I'm working on that no matter what they are, if they're in my hand, I'm fully passionate and present with them. So I can't say I pick one over the other. There's just 5 things. And I've learned that that's just who it is or who I am and what it is right now. But I've always felt like I had to juggle. And I never, if you're focusing on one ball and it's in your hand, you're constantly worried about the next one and being able to catch it and doing it again and again and again. Right. And I think we all live in that paradigm. We all live in all right, it's balance I don't think exists, but we are going to have ebbs and flows. We're going to feel really good and feel really comfortable juggling. And then sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm juggling on one of those balls or standing on a Bosu ball juggling. Like that's how it feels. And you're just hoping that none of the balls drop. And I just had this awareness of I am so exhausted from juggling and the consciousness that has to happen, even that I'm not aware of, every single second, even in my sleep, of making sure that I don't drop a ball, don't drop a ball, don't drop a ball. What happens if I shift that and I say, I will let the balls drop that's supposed to, but I actually fully believe I can stop juggling and they still will stay in the air. And that's the truth of everything. When you look at, like, if I do the inner work, if these exist because they're supposed to exist and there's the team that I built to help them, if they drop, they're not supposed to exist because right. No human is supposed to be in this circus, but we think we're supposed to, or whether it's glamorized because of Gary V, God bless him, or because it's just something that we want, we want for ourselves. It's usually an ego thing why we are doing the juggling. But the power and the abundance comes from being able to just let it be and hoping, not even hoping, just knowing if it does drop, then it was the wrong time or it's the wrong place. And you have to respect that because you will burn out. And I don't know why I started that tangent, but that's been a huge shift for me of understanding that the inner work can help with the outer work in ways that you can't even imagine.
So cool. You're like on the hero's journey. You're familiar with Joseph Campbell?
I feel like I should be.
Joseph Campbell, Hero's Journey. Here are 1,000 faces.
I feel like I've heard this at least 4 times on my podcast.
Well, now here we go. Now we got it. So essentially, Joe Campbell, he's like world famous mythologist. He's dead now. But the Here are 1,000 Faces, essentially all the story arcs of heroes throughout all the various stories, including like Jesus or Lord of the Rings, which I think is based off of Jesus. Anyways, they all follow the similar arc. So they start off, they come from yeah, exactly. So they come from, they should bring in your voice noozle back down for so he starts off, he calls it the ordinary world. And so ordinary world would be like you came from Missouri. And so that would be like, it's a very ordinary world. I come from Pennsylvania, a very ordinary world, Lancaster, Amish country. And then from there, like that's your whole world. And then eventually you break out of that and you go and you kind of like fight the dragon and you learn all the things. Then you come back, return to your ordinary world with all the new lessons from your journey. It seems like you kind of almost sounds like you're recently embarking on the journey, but previously it seems like you've been...
What's after the lessons? What comes after the lessons you bring to your...
I don't know. I think everybody just drinks wine and hangs out.
So you keep doing so cycles probably.
But specifically, it seems like because you went, it seems as though, I'm like, please correct, but it seems as though you were kind of going down, forcing a misshapen peg into a hole that's not for the fit.
This is the manifestation that came from
Bring this a little.
The body will tell you signs. Like for me, the output that I do on a day-to-day level, when it's in flow, whatever you want to call it, in purpose, in alignment, it is sometimes like I finish the day and I'm like, how the fuck did I do this? This is insane. How did I do all this? But it is so in alignment that you do not feel the stress that you would feel if you are doing something half of the work that's so not who you think or it's who you think you should be, not who you actually are. So for me, that came into play severely when I was CrossFitting and trying to compete in CrossFit, and just launched the second company, the MPAC. And I was like, I'm gonna stay working out. I'm gonna stay competing, and I'm also gonna do this MPAC thing. And I just refused to listen. I didn't want to listen to my body, to the point that my body fell apart. And that was a beautiful lesson in the end. But it was, even though on paper the output could be the same for, all the things that you're doing, if one of them isn't in true alignment, you will feel that in your body. And that's what I think true adrenal stress really is like, you're just putting yourself in the peg. You're trying to make it fit. You're trying to make something work that deep down you probably don't really want, but somehow have been led to believe that that is what you want, or it is who you are. And so for me, it was really deciding, and even saying this in every meeting that I start: is this ego? Are we doing this because it makes us look good? Are we doing this booth because it makes us check the box and people are like, oh, they made it to XYZ?
Right.
Or are we doing this because it's in true alignment with what I want to do? Do I want to keep hosting workouts across the country? Do I love it? Sure. It doesn't really excite me. I don't think I want to do it anymore. You got to listen to that. And if you don't, you keep doing it because you think you should, kind of the same paradigm of saying yes, saying no, then your body will hate you. And it can manifest in ways of anxiety. It can manifest in gut issues, and irregularity, and digestion woes. I mean, it's the same thing that we ran away from when we changed our diet in the first place. So I think that was the true lesson of quitting CrossFit. My last competition was about 2 years ago, of like, why am I doing this? Like, why? What is the real reason? Because it's giving my ego something. It's doing nothing else besides that. So those are the hard conversations, because a lot of it has to do with relationships. A lot of it has to do with how you're perceived in the world. And I mean, it's just hard. It's just hard work. But when you dig into it and you're willing to ask those questions and write them out, usually it doesn't come to me, just sitting there. I have to write it, and then I read it and I'm like, oh, I just told myself I didn't know that, but I just figured it out. That's what I want to do. I no longer get fulfillment out of XYZ. And having that conversation consistently, because we always evolve, we always are changing, and we have to allow ourselves to be able to do that.
What are some of the witchier things that you do to help kind of soften, heal, downregulate the body?
Man, so I do a lot of essential oils, especially chakra-based essential oils. For me, solar plexus is the one that, I've said this forever, but when you feel icky, you usually can feel it somewhere. So do you feel icky in your throat? Is it because you're not saying something that you really want to say? Do you feel icky in, kind of your head? Is it sometimes like a headache? Are you like so disconnected from, any sort of spirituality? For me, it's always solar plexus. And so I use oils that help with it, whether it's like I just found some new fun essential oils, but any blend can be really good. So I take those in flower essences almost every day. Flower essences I thought were just such a placebo kind of joke. And then I started muscle testing with it for my clients and realized, with muscle testing, a lot of people will say it's all full of shit, and some people will say like it's the only way, but really it comes down to your energy and their energy. And most people that are coming to you to be tested on have some sort of blocked sphere, like whether it's stress or illness or just protection. And flower essences literally within an instant can break that shield. And that's really powerful. I've seen it happen even with my cat, who's having like a panic attack as I take him to the mountains, giving him flower essences. Like it's pretty cool. So that's something that I'm a big believer in. And then I do a ton of any sort of tea. I'm obsessed with like any sort of adaptogenic adrenal mushroom support. I will always be drinking, so that I feel like opens me up and
what
helps
specific
me.
ones?
So I have an herbal coffee that I love that's adaptogenic, so ashwagandha, but also burdock and dandelion root, which I have issues with gallbladder quite consistently just because of stress and high energy and my constituents. So I tend to be just go stressed, and so I crave that taste, that rooty taste. And then I also do a ton of Four Sigmatic, cordyceps specifically. And then Herb Farm is another one that has a bunch of tinctures. So they have bedtime sprays. They have a daily stress blend that just has everything that you want in an adaptogenic kind of spray. Those are my 3 kind of go-tos. And then I pull tarot cards and I sit in saunas and I take baths.
Good.
With some Palo Santo. I try to do at least like one thing a day that is outside of being outside that really makes me feel like I'm fine. Because I live in a very go, go, go world. And to the work of the 7, the go, go, go world person, is to just sit and realize the goodness that's around.
You heard a guy called John Sarno wrote Healing, I think, what is it called? Healing back pain. Super popular, well, like older popular book around how your mind is. He claims that like over 90% of chronic pain is something that's manifesting within the mind. But essentially, he breaks down, it's like you're running these psychological patterns that are stressing you out. And he says it kind of contracts your tissue, and you end up kind of activating these pain sensors as a product of what's happening in your mind. And if you can start to come in control of that, then all of a sudden you can relax in your body and let go of some of that tension in there. 100%.
I mean, inflammatory cytokines, interleukins. I mean, it's all the gut-brain connection. That's, I think that honestly, so I had a lot of concussions growing up, and even in my 20s, and so I'm hypersensitive to that stuff, where that's why the nutrition that I do and the diet that I do, if I don't do it, I am a horrible human in comparison. It's almost like you figure out how great you can be when you tap into the right supplements for your brain and for your body. But for me, I'm hypersensitive to anything that causes inflammation. So the only alcohol that I really do well with is mezcal, because I think it's just like the coolest when you it has history to it, which I think gives it something different than just booze. You know, it's not just like liquor sitting in a oak barrel, like fermenting. It's just, and I know that sounds crazy, but even the lotion that you put on and the shampoo that you use, all of that, it all ties into how your body handles stress and where that stress is going to manifest, whether you feel it or it just sits there and then you someday you just topple across that cliff. Yeah,
I think there's a huge part to doing like a mezcal or something like that, like the community part and the ceremony around it. There's a study about they took 2 different smoothies, like milkshakes, and one was like super fatty, all the stuff, and the other one was like diet, has nothing in it, but they were both actually the same thing. And they gave them to 2 different groups of people, and they had totally different hormonal effects and blood glucose, like everything was completely different based off of what their perception of the thing was.
Wow.
And so I think that something like that, like I think anything that brings people together to create community, I'm into it. Whatever that thing. Like, I don't drink alcohol, but if people are doing that, like, I want to be a part of that circle.
Totally.
Get me in the circle.
Yeah. I mean, because it's just, what are we missing more than anything? We're missing connection, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. With technology, we're not connected. We're just fake connected. We've all heard this before. Yeah. So it's like, well, what can you do? And I used to be so diehard. I wouldn't drink, and I wouldn't do anything. I mean, I was such a square, because all I cared about was being the best athlete and being the best me and having the perfect XYZ. And I think that was more stressful than what I have now, where I'm like, yeah, sure, let's have some. I'm probably going to have mezcal right after this.
Oh, good. Me too.
It's Friday. It's beautiful outside. I will say, if you're new to mezcal, and this is not sponsored, but I am obsessed with this female-owned company, Gem and Bolt. All right. And they infuse it with Damiana.
Oh, good.
Which is a delicious aphrodisiac. So it's my absolute favorite. Gem and Bolt.
What are you going to get into? What's good times for you? What's like?
That's it.
Good.
Gem and Bolt. No, I'm just kidding. So I tend to do I don't drink. I mean, for me, it's just being with good people, and I tend to only be content when I'm doing something that is a little bit scary. So that's something I'm working on. But what that means, like, for me, is either snowboarding or being in the mountains, or being in something extreme is very comfortable for me. So I grew up also in a very religious environment, and then it turned out to not be the thing that I thought it was. So I call it the cult. There's pre-cult and ex-cult. And I remember feeling I was so comfortable in this, and you'll relate to this. I was so comfortable in who I was, in the way that we lived and how we were to other humans, and the belief system that we had. That was my truth. And then when that gets taken away from you, and you realize, oh my God, I thought that was real. And then it's not. You tend to have this pendulum effect where everything that's comfortable is a warning sign. So I am still in that. I'm definitely better, but I do better in uncomfortable situations than I do in comfortable ones, if that makes sense.
How do you do with like emotional vulnerability?
I was horrible at it especially when I first left the cult. When I first had to start.
What is this cult? What is
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's similar to
mine was just
Midwest.
good old fashioned Christianity.
Yeah, so take that, make it more, make it extra.
Was it like evangelical? Were you like speaking in tongues and like?
Yeah.
That's interesting when you see some of the consistencies between some of like the cultish religious dogmas that we think it was like, oh no, but then you go and you go to do an ayahuasca ceremony with your Venice friends or Denver friends or whatever, and you're like, oh, it's like the traditions overlap oftentimes.
Traditions, but the purpose, right? The leadership, the intention is the flaw.
But within an ayahuasca cult, there could be the same thing. Like if you go to Peru and you just show up with like your pesos or whatever, it's like there's a lot of people that will jack you up.
Yeah.
So I think within all of the dogmas, there's good and bad.
As far as like the virtues that it teaches you at a young age, like you can't go wrong with that, right? You learn how to be a good human, even though it might have been with a string attached to be good for Jesus and to make it into heaven, but you still learn some really important things that you can't miss when you're in that situation. So I think maybe it's, for me, it was just understanding that if I can come out of that and be, I guess, the pendulum swing of knowing how uncomfortable I love being, and now knowing that I have to find comfort and be content in what I have, because to me that's like the warning sign of like, don't get complacent, because that it's all gonna fall apart. So that's been the fun work of 20s, and now I guess I don't know what the 30s will bring.
I interrupted you with the cult stuff. Oh, the emotional vulnerability. You said you weren't.
Oh yes, thank you for bringing that around.
Yeah.
Had a really hard time talking about it, and then I was on reality TV, and that's all that you have to do. You have to sit and talk about it, and that was really hard. It took about a month of filming before I was able to showcase who I was, and I think it was an accident of being on it. It was like a beautiful accident, I guess I should say. I didn't have any intention to be on it, but the lesson I learned, the biggest takeaway was you have to talk about the struggle, and it's tied into everything that I've done since then. I wouldn't be the person I was unless I was forced to sit in the chair in the interview room and tell them about how I felt about every situation. And I fought it, and I would run away from the house. I really hated it, but it did teach me, when people would see that side of me, and I saw the comments and the tweets and the feedback of thank you for sharing what you shared, it changed my life. I had this light bulb of, why am I trying so hard? I'm such a turtle, like hard on the outside and soft on the inside. And sure, it might be kind of like, yeah, she's tough, but there's nothing glamorous about it when you were just hiding who you really are. So you got to show people that it's kind of like the drop of the water buckets, right? Like you have to be okay with things falling apart and sharing that story, because that's where I've seen the most impact for my following or for my clients.
What do you feel? Do you feel like there's anything that you're actively struggling with presently?
Oh, man, that's a good question. 2018, on paper, it was the best year of my life. And it really was a great freaking year. Like, so much effort and so much work and so much communication. When you learn how to build a team and build kind of a place where you can grow your ideas. I think for me, I will always struggle with guilt. I will always struggle with knowing that I deserve this life. I deserve how good it is. I mean, it's like it's a joke. My life is a joke. It's so good. I can't even get over it. It's insane to me. 5 years ago, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just trying to help people with my iPad, filming challenge videos, and now I'm able to open a gym, debt-free, investor-free, on my own, to have people come to my gym, work out, tell me how good it feels to work out at my gym, and then go home and feel like I can eat good food and tell people about good food. I mean, I just have a dream life. I have a beautiful dream life, and I know I worked really hard for it. So it's understanding what work I now need to do. Do I need to be the person in the trenches digging and digging and digging? Because that's the only thing I know how to do.
Right.
I've always been just a hard, like, let's go. I will work until I fall, until I just pass out. But that's no longer sustainable. So the work this year is understanding that it's a different type of work, and it's still just as deserved, if that makes sense.
Do you have like a vision of what's to come?
I have, I mean, I have a huge vision for, I have 5 companies that I'm obsessed with. So each one has a path that I see it going, and they're all so unique and different, and I love that. I love that I am slowly starting to not have to be the face of everything, which was always the vision.
Right.
Make these live without me, and they're doing that, and that's the coolest. So how can I do that a little bit more? Evolve Motion, I want to be a company that helps people understand the beauty of nature, but also has really badass backpacks to do it and help people strength train. With the teas, I want to teach people the power of herbs and how powerful. It's kind of crazy that it's not talked about enough. I mean, herbal medicine is medicine, and it's just become flipped in America specifically. So reteaching people about how teas can nourish you and give you what your body's asking for. And that's been so fun to see that grow, because it's something I really love doing. The gym, I obviously want a couple locations because I think it's the coolest to be able to come in and not feel like you're in a hardcore go, must fall on the ground after your workout, which is what I thought was the only answer.
You can nourish yourself from exercise.
Mm-hmm. There wasn't an in-between. I felt like the platform strength really was that in-between. And then, just making sure that what do I love to do? I love to teach people. I just want to teach people in different, unique ways, and I want to stay creative. And so I think that's whatever can stay in alignment with those two things. If I can focus on creativity and teaching, then I'm going to have a beautiful life.
So it seems like you've done a really good job with visualizing a thing and making it actually become a real tangible thing. Mm-hmm. Is there any standout points of how one does that?
I whiteboard a lot.
Oh, good.
Whiteboard. I can't think without a marker sometimes. It's like I have ideas in my head, and so I have a whiteboard in my office, and I just will write and write and write and write until it makes sense, and it always does. It's kind of like if you have something in your head and you feel something and you kind of have your head going in circles, just put a pen or marker in your hand and you'll figure it out. I don't know if that's the type of person, like some creative brains might do better with that than analytical, but I haven't seen anyone fail that test. If you feel a little stuck, that's something that has been really helpful for me. And I also I can't just say, it's just like what I tell my clients. You can't just say you want to feel fit, you want to feel strong, you want to get healthier this year. That means nothing to me. I need like tangible definitions of what healthy means or what stronger means. And so that might mean going from 1 pull-up to 10 by the end of the year, or it might be you want to run a 5K without stopping. So same thing, if I hold that standard, it's health and wellness, it completely is exact same for business, how you grow your business. Right. So it's like, all right, if I want to create more wealth or create more abundance, you can't just say that. You can't just say I want to grow. It's saying this is the exact goal and then breaking it out quarter to quarter and seeing what that looks like.
Is there anything that stands out of things that have been like unexpected challenges in growing your business?
For sure. I mean, for me, I'm used to I started this on my own, on an iPad and with a $500 website. So I was traveling to Thailand and didn't know how to connect to my clients. So I started a challenge where they would log points when I was gone. And then that became the MFit challenge. And so since starting that, it kind of grew from 20 people to my last, it grew so quickly, and I didn't understand that I needed to ask for help when I needed it so desperately.
Right.
So, you're doing your support emails, you're doing challenge creation, you're doing emails, you're doing shirt shipments. I mean, you're just trying to make it all work. And so, I've had help here and there, with support emails and, okay, we found a distribution center for shipping out XYZ, and you have a team, but the true work, the biggest challenge was a team of people that can help you be the creative that you are. So hiring 5 people and having a team of 15 now that are all under you and looking up to you. And, you think of you're a boss and you just say what it is. And that's never the case. It's always, the only path to growth is if they do not understand what's in my brain, nothing good will happen.
Right.
So the whole work is saying, how do I take what's in my brain and communicate it in a way that makes sense to them? And that's a lot of effort. I mean, it sounds so simple, but it's not. When you are just kind of always the person that does everything and you just go with your gut and that feels good, that feels good. Yep, we're going to do that. And then now you have to relay that to 15 people. It's just a different story. And that's the challenge of it's amazing. And it was this light bulb of, all right, I'm going to try this. We're going to have our first, for example, Black Fridays, the biggest sales day of the year, right? So we have Black Friday and you have to communicate with everybody. And you are like, God, I hope this works. And then it works. And you're like, oh my gosh, I felt like I didn't have to work. Now I started to feel guilty, but you did the work. You just did it in such a different way. And so it's just the true small business growing pains of if you can do exactly what you're supposed to do and be creative and communicate, let the people that want to, that are really good at organizing and delegating and doing XYZ, find those people. And they have come to me effortlessly. It was I just will be like, God, I need an email person. And then somebody would email me the next day and say, hey, I just had a feeling that you needed somebody for email. It's just insane how it works. So you just have to be really honest and really vulnerable and say I'm struggling communicating this with you guys. I'm just going to tell you this sucks. I hate the way this feels, and everyone is happy. And it's really cool. So I plan to keep growing, and I think for me, just communicating, and I just want to be a good boss. I want to be a really good boss. So that's my 2019.
Does anything stand out as far as tips on how to effectively communicate to a team of 15 people as opposed to just yourself or another person?
Yeah, I think, I start every meeting. I'm an empath no matter what. So that always helps. If you're an empath and you're a boss, you're ahead of the game. You're able to communicate in ways that are unsaid because you can feel somebody's energy if they're off, if they're struggling. And that I think is really great. And so I think I always start every meeting, no matter what, I think it's important to just make sure you realize it's human to human. And I think my favorite thing to do, I make everyone pull a tarot card and then I tell them, it's on a scale of 1 to 10, tell me how you feel. And if you just start everybody with this kind of, and I do it for everything that I do, no matter if I've just met you or if I haven't met you, and it's just really fun. It allows them to check in with themselves, and then also you as an empath get to see where they are, and it changes the way you talk to them throughout the whole course of the meeting, because you're if you're a 10 and you're crushing life, then I'm going to give you XYZ and I'm not going to censor it. But if you're a 2 and you're struggling and you haven't slept, the last thing I'm going to do is put all of this on your plate and make you go from a 2 to a negative 10. Right. So communication, try to be an empath and use that if you are an empath, use that because it's really a big benefit.
How does one cultivate their empathy? And then we'll wrap up pretty soon because we got to get the mezcal and all that stuff. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, we got a lot going on.
And the sun's going to go down.
I know, it's going to get cold.
It's going to get cold.
To cultivate your empath. So if you're not a true empath, I mean, it's just the same as when you're checking in with yourself. So imagine your body, your stomach hurts. instead of just saying my stomach hurts and I'm moving on, so my stomach hurts. Why does my stomach hurt? Let me figure that out. Did I eat something? Am I stressed? Did I not sleep very well? You can kind of figure it out. And so I think it's just genuine curiosity. Be curious. So the analogy of somebody is like, yeah. And you're like, God, this person's like really low today. They have like shitty energy. And you can so easily just say, that's like not the energy I want to be around, or screw you. But instead just say like, I wonder why that person has low energy. Is anything going on in their life? Maybe I should ask. And you ask, and all of a sudden they open up to you and you're like, oh shit. Like, I didn't know any of that was going on. You know, we're just not humans to each other. And so if you're an empath for real, or if you want to be more empathic, just get curious and know that people deserve to be asked questions. I decided that, the 5 love languages. Mm-hmm. I'm a 6, and it's ask me questions. I think there's so many people that could relate to that. If it's like, just ask questions. Be genuinely curious with nothing in return. I'm not going to ask you a question just because I want you to ask me the same one. I want nothing out of this. I just want to know genuinely this. And that, I think, is so powerful.
Our nervous system is constructed that way too. Most of the fire, like in the vagus nerve, they're going back from the organs back to the brain, so sending information of what's happening. So it's like sensory information versus very few, like 10, 15, 20% or so of the nerve fibers are going from the brain, like motor fibers saying, do this stuff.
Yeah.
So like literally the composition of your nervous system is one of listening. But most of us, the way that we conduct ourselves is one of like doing all the time.
Yeah. That's
so you can learn from your vagus nerve. How do people learn more about your stuff? What's the best place to point people? Where should people go?
My Instagram is fine. That works for me. Emily Schromm. EMILYSCHROMM. And then there's kind of a rabbit hole in my bio of all the fun projects that I'm doing, of all the balls that are in the air.
They're floating right now. They're floating.
It's been pretty cool. All the balls are floating. And then my website is emilyschromm.com. And then I have a podcast as well, Meathead Hippie.
Meathead Hippie. You're like a real meathead hippie.
I am. It's the most accurate description I've been able to come up with. I think it nailed it.
That's good. Meathead Hippie. Those are my favorite people. I think that's pretty much who listens to this podcast, so that's perfect. All right. Thanks so much. Anything else final before I press the red button?
No, thanks for having me.
All right.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Down. Pow, pow. Thank you.
Hope you guys enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. I want to present y'all with a fun opportunity of starting a program that I created called the Align Method Online Program that focuses on unwinding the unsightly patterns of staring into technology, essentially. So forward head posture, rolled forward shoulders, hyperkyphotic spine, disengaged glutes, knees collapsing in. If there's collapse in any level in the body, it will trickle up and down through the rest of the system. And that program focuses on unwinding those things, giving you self-care practices, movement practices, and lifestyle adjustments, very subtle ones, that will give y'all more flexibility, more strength, more confidence, more energy, all the good things. And you can start the first week absolutely free, and just go to alignpodcast.com/Align Method, ALIGN method. Along with that guy, you will receive the Align band, which is a heavy-duty resistance band with a door anchor, and that also comes with its own online program that is free with that thing. Go to alignband.com and start that program for free. I think that's it. I so greatly appreciate you guys listening to this conversation. So greatly appreciate reviews on iTunes, sharing on the Instagrams or the Facebooks or wherever you do your shares. This program lives on because of y'all. So it doesn't go unnoticed. Thank you for listening. Thank you for reviews. Thanks for joining your life. Enjoy.